Grab your coffee, mama. It's time for coffee, clients, and nap time. I'm Sarah Marie, and this is your guide to building a business that works for you and your family. Here, we'll dive into creating a thriving business that lets you be the hands-on parent you want while designing the life you've always dreamed of. So if you're ready to balance business success with family life and make it all work in a way that feels right for you, then let's dive in. Hey mama, and welcome back to Coffee, Clients, and Nap Time. I'm Sarah Marie, and today we're talking about something that I wish someone had told me years ago. And that's that capacity does not equal capability. And I want to be really clear about what that means, because this distinction is everything. Just because you're capable of doing something doesn't mean you have the capacity to do it right now. And just because your capacity is reduced doesn't mean you're no longer capable. These are two completely different things, but we conflate them all the time. And when we do, we end up either pushing ourselves past our limits or believing that somehow we've become less competent. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, actually, because I'm watching myself operate at a capacity that I just haven't experienced in years. My toddler has dropped his nap. My work time has just been cut in half. And I found myself thinking, God, I used to be able to do so much more than this. And that's when it really hit me. I am just as capable as I was before. What's changed is my capacity. So today we're unpacking this, what capacity actually is, how it's different from capability, why it all changes, and most importantly, how to honor where you are without feeling like you've somehow become less. I want to start by defining these terms because I think a lot of the time we use them interchangeably when they actually mean very different things. Capability is your skill, it's your knowledge, and it's your competence. It's what you're able to do when the conditions are right. It's your potential, your expertise. It's the things that you know how to do, the things you are capable of. So if you're a skilled writer, that capability just doesn't appear when life gets chaotic. If you're great at strategy, you don't suddenly forget how to think strategically. And if you're excellent at client work, that excellence just doesn't suddenly vanish. Capability is relatively stable. It might grow over time as you learn new things and develop, but it won't fluctuate day to day. Capacity, on the other hand, is your available energy, time, and mental bandwidth at any given moment. It's how much you can actually do right now, given everything else that you're managing. Capacity fluctuates constantly. It changes based on sleep, stress, life circumstances, responsibilities, seasons, your health, and your support systems. It's not about what you're capable of. It's about what you currently have space for. Here's an example. I'm capable of running a full coaching practice, a complete creative studio, creating content, showing up on social media, and hosting this podcast. I have the skills to do all of that. The capability is there. But do I have the capacity to do all of that simultaneously right now while managing 3 kids in different transitions, no nap time, and the reality of being the default parent? No, not even close. My capability hasn't changed. My capacity has. And that's the distinction that we really need to be clear on. Because when we confuse the two, we either push ourselves into burnout by trying to prove our capability, or we start believing that we're no longer capable just because our capacity is limited. Next, let's talk about why capacity actually changes. There are temporary capacity limits. These are short-term hits to your bandwidth. Your child's sick, you're sick, there's a family emergency, school holidays, or a particularly intense client deadline. These capacity limits are defined. They will pass. You know that they will. But while you're in them, your capacity is genuinely reduced. You can't do as much as you normally would, not because you're suddenly less capable, but because your energy and attention are being pulled elsewhere. Then there are seasonal capacity shifts. These last longer. These are things like the baby and toddler years, the preschool chaos phase, or even the teenage years where they're emotional intense. It's like pregnancy and postpartum, or even perimenopause. These aren't temporary blips. These are extended seasons where your capacity is different. Not gone, just different. You adapt, you adjust, but you're operating with less available bandwidth for an extended period. I'm in a seasonal shift right now. My toddler dropping his nap isn't a one-week thing. This is the new reality for probably the next 6 months to a year or so. My capacity for focused work has shifted, and I need to build my business around that reality instead of fighting against it. And then there's the fundamental capacity shift that happens when you become a mother. This one really deserves its own category because it's kind of permanent. Before kids, your capacity was yours. It was your time, your energy, your mental bandwidth. It all belonged to you. You could throw yourself fully into work, stay up late if you wanted, work weekends, and push through exhaustion if a project required it. After kids, however, your capacity is shared. You're never really fully off. You're always managing the mental load, always aware of schedules and needs, and always on call emotionally, even when you're physically at work. And if you're the default parent, which most mothers are, you're carrying the invisible weight of being the one who holds everything together. That takes capacity, constant, ongoing capacity. So your capacity as a mother is fundamentally different from your capacity before you had kids. It's not less, it's different. You're allocating your energy differently. You're distributing your bandwidth across multiple roles and responsibilities. Understanding why capacity changes helps you stop thinking, what's wrong with me? And start thinking, what's the reality I'm working with right now? Now let's talk about the most dangerous comparison mums make, which is comparing your current capacity to your past capacity. I used to be able to work a 40-hour week. I used to launch new offers every quarter. I used to show up on social media daily. I used to have so much more energy. This is the I used to trap. And it's not good for anyone because it makes you feel like you've somehow become less capable, when actually it's just your circumstances that have changed. Yes, you used to be able to do all that because you used to have a different capacity. Maybe you had no kids, fewer kids. Maybe your kids were at a different stage. Maybe you had more support. Maybe you weren't the default parent back then. Maybe you didn't have the same invisible load that you're carrying now. Your capability hasn't diminished. Your capacity has shifted to accommodate a completely different life structure. And here's the other piece to this. You're also comparing yourself to a version of you who didn't know what it is that you know now. You didn't know how unsustainable that pace was. You didn't know that you were heading for burnout. You didn't know that working like that would cost you in many ways that you just couldn't see yet. So when you say, I used to be able to, what you're really saying is, I used to operate at an unsustainable pace that I didn't recognize as unsustainable at the time. Yes, your current capacity might be lower, but it's also wiser. You're not trying to do everything anymore. You're being strategic about what matters. You're protecting your energy instead of spending it all. So stop comparing yourself to the past you. That version of you lived in a very different circumstances with very different capacity. She is not the benchmark. Your current reality is. Here's what I really want you to hear, if nothing else from this whole episode. Just because your capacity is reduced right now does not mean you are less capable. You haven't lost your skills. You haven't become incompetent. You haven't somehow become a lesser version of yourself. You're just operating within different constraints. Think about it this way. If you had a broken leg, you wouldn't question your ability to walk. You know you can walk. You're fully capable of walking. You just can't walk right now because you're temporarily injured. The capability is still there. The capacity is limited. And the same is true for your work. You're still capable of brilliant strategy, compelling writing, excellent client work, creative problem solving. But if you're navigating broken sleep or sick kids or school transitions or the relentless nature of being the default parent, your capacity to execute on that capability is constrained. And reduced capacity often requires you to be more strategic, more creative, more efficient. You have to prioritize ruthlessly. You have to get really clear on what actually matters. You have to find ways to achieve results with less time and energy. And that's not evidence that you're less capable. That's evidence that you're highly capable. So capable, in fact, that you can still produce great work even with limited capacity. I see this with mums I work with all the time. They're managing businesses, serving their clients beautifully, creating incredible work, all while operating on half the capacity they had before kids. It's not less capability. It's exceptional capability working within constrained capacity. So if you're producing less output right now, that doesn't mean you're less capable. It means you're working with less capacity. And the fact that you're still showing up, still serving, and still creating, that's proof of your capability, not evidence against it. Okay, so how do you actually honor your capacity without feeling like you're settling or giving up? First, you need to get honest about what your capacity actually is right now. Not what you wish it was, not what it used to be, not what you think it should be, but what it actually is. How much focused work time do you realistically have each week? How much energy do you have after managing the kids, the household, and the mental load? How much bandwidth do you have for decision making, creative thinking, or strategic work? Be so brutally honest here, because working beyond your capacity doesn't prove you're capable. It just leads to burnout. Second, build your business around that capacity, not around some idealized version of what you think you should be able to handle. If you have 15 hours of capacity a week, design a business that thrives in 15 hours. Don't try to shove a 40-hour business into 15 hours and then feel like a failure when you can't keep up. This may mean fewer clients, simpler offers, less frequent content, more asynchronous delivery, whatever it takes to match your business demands to your actual capacity. Third, recognize that capacity can expand again. This season won't last forever. Kids get older, they become more independent, they go to school, seasons shift, your capacity will change. But trying to operate as if you already have the capacity you'll have in the future just makes you miserable in the present. So work with the capacity you have now. Trust that when capacity expands, you'll be ready to step into more. But don't sacrifice your well-being today for some hypothetical future version of your business. And finally, and this is so important, stop equating your worth to your output. Your value isn't determined by how much you produce. Your capacity isn't measured by how much you can do in a week. You are not more valuable when you're operating at full capacity and then less valuable when capacity is constrained. You're capable whether you're working a 40-hour week or 10. You're valuable whether you're launching something new every month or maintaining what you've already built. Capacity is about circumstances. Capability is about you. And you're just as capable now as you've ever been. You are just working within different constraints. Okay, here's what I've actually learned over the past 15 years of running my businesses. There's profound freedom in accepting your capacity as it is. When you stop fighting reality, when you stop trying to force yourself to operate beyond your actual bandwidth, when you stop comparing yourself to the past you or other people, suddenly you can breathe. You stop feeling like you're failing all the time. You stop pushing yourself into exhaustion trying to prove something. And you stop believing that your worth is tied to your productivity. Instead, you get strategic. You get intentional. You get really clear about what actually matters and what can wait. You build a business that fits your life instead of trying to fit your life around your business. And you work with your capacity instead of against it. And ironically, when you accept your capacity and work within it, you often produce better work because you're not depleted, you're not resentful, and you're not running on fumes. Instead, you're working from a place of sustainability instead of scarcity, and that changes everything. So, if you're in a season of reduced capacity right now, whether it's temporary, seasonal, or the new normal of being a mum, I just want you to know that you haven't become less. Your circumstances have changed. Your capacity has shifted, but your capability, that's still intact. You are just as skilled, just as knowledgeable, and just as competent as you've ever been. You're just working within those different constraints. And that fact that you are still showing up, still serving, and still building something meaningful with less time and less energy than you had before, that's not evidence that you're less capable. That's evidence that you're incredibly capable, working within some very real limitations. So, if this episode has resonated with you, send me a DM at balancedbizmama and tell me, what's your capacity like right now? And if you want support building a business that actually fits your capacity instead of demanding more than you have, come join us in the Balanced Biz Mama Circle. We're all figuring out how to work within our reality instead of against it. So remember, Mama, capacity doesn't equal capability. Just because you can't do as much right now doesn't mean you're less capable. And just because your capacity is reduced doesn't mean you're less valuable. You're working within constraints. And the fact that you're still creating, still serving, and still showing up, that's proof of your capability, not evidence against it. So stop comparing yourself to past you. Stop fighting your current capacity. Stop believing that your worth is tied to your output. Accept where you are, work with what you have, trust that your capability is intact even when your capacity is constrained. And until next time, honor your capacity, trust your capability, and remember, you've got this. Thanks for joining me on Coffee, Clients and Nap Time. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mum who's ready to build their dream life. You can also join our Facebook page or Instagram to stay connected every day of the week. The link is in the show notes. Just remember, you've got this, and I'm here to help every step of the way.